Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. Now we are in the evening session of My Site 2022. I believe that all participants have presented their papers, and now without further ado, we reach to the keynote session in the evening session. For this evening, our keynote speech is going to be delivered by Associate Professor A.R. Sarli Adri Sarkum. Before we invite the speaker today, I would like to read some profile for our speaker today. Associate Professor A.R. Sarli Adri Sarkum is an architecture futurist, sustainability proponent, and design activist. He founded the hybrid architectural design firm or Sarli Adri Sarkum Architectures Niam Berhad, which combines cutting-edge architectural design solution with an extensively research-based explorative approach to solve challenging integrated design problems. He is currently a past president on council in the Malaysia Green Building Council, which is under the auspices of the World Green Building Council. He was also the Deputy President of Pertubuhan Architect Malaysia, the Malaysian Institute of Architects, 2017 to 2019. He was the Editor-in-Chief for Architecture Malaysia, which is the premier architecture journal. He holds 2 degrees in architecture, and he is also the academic advisor to the Master of Green Architecture in University Technology Mara. UM also appointed him as Associate Professor in Industry, and currently he is managing and coordinating the 3 niche lab for the final year for the UM Master Architecture program, namely Green and Sustainable Architecture Lab, Urban and Community Architecture Lab, and Heritage and Conservation Architecture Lab. Without further ado, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Associate Professor A.R. Sarli Adri Sarkum for his speech. Please welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Puan Rashida, for such a wonderful introduction. Bear with me as I share my screen. Sorry. My share screen. Okay, a very warm welcome. Hope everyone here is doing well. I know it's Friday. Difficult to have a slot after Friday prayers. Yeah. Today we are going to talk about, my keynote will be all about the significance of carbon measurements in buildings. Yeah. It's not moving. So I think no need for further introductions. I think Puan Rashida has made a very extensive introduction about myself. I'm also practicing, not just in the academic world. Actually, my appointment as Associate Professor Industry means that I'm bridging the world of practice with the work that we're doing in the industry, as well as the research work that is being done in university. So that is where I'm coming from. Yeah. And my firm has always been involved in sustainable works, from the largest master plans to the smallest small installations. We are at the cusp, or at a tipping point. As Elon Musk mentioned, we are running the most dangerous experiment in history right now, which is to see how much carbon dioxide the atmosphere can handle before there is an environmental catastrophe. And we know that there is a very real danger, and there was in the early 2008, 2007, there was a huge concern about the degree of change that we're headed for. And if you do not know, all the conferences, such as the Copenhagen Climate, the Tokyo Accords, or the COP climate, the COP conferences and whatnot, is all due to the fact that this slight amount of temperature change can mean huge changes in the world. And all those efforts that the United Nations are putting in is just to make sure that we don't go more than 2 degrees Celsius. Yeah, and uh, we are already seeing some of these effects here in Malaysia. I mean, like here we mentioned the coral reefs dying. Yeah, a lot of, if you have gone through on a recent holiday, you can see a lot of the corals are actually suffering. Um, and of course, we could even go as bad as a global wipeout if we let our planet suffer through 6 degrees of temperature change. And quite ironically, today is Earth Day, so happy Earth Day, everybody. And our Earth has endured much changes in the past few 100 years since the Industrial Revolution. It's not something which is unrealistic, which without scientific data, we even the most compelling data, I would say, is when you look at the satellite photos of the shrinkage of the Arctic, yeah, the Arctic ice caps. It's very, very significant. You can see that ice is really melting. It's not just something that scientists theorize or it's a theory. It is really happening to our planet. And there is a very real impact to everyday life. This is just general information about in the whole world, not just the rise of sea levels, transformation of ecosystem, the decline in fishing, population exposed to floods, extremely cold nights, extremely hot days. Yeah, so there is a huge impact when we look at these temperature changes. Even from 1.5 Celsius to 2 Celsius, yeah, around the world. And all this is because of carbon. Yeah. And a lot of people mentioned that they want to measure climate change. They want to measure the rate of this decay. Yeah. But are we there yet? Can we easily measure as we measure when you want to lose weight? You can measure your weight using a scale, and you can get your measurement easily from a scale. Like uh, if you are slightly overweight, from 70, your ideal weight is 61 kilos. You can measure yourself and get. So it's quantifiable measure that we are looking at. But how about climate change? That is the big question that we are posing here today. Yeah. Uh, as you're well aware, in Malaysia we have green building rating tool called Green Building Index. And these are just some data from all the green building index projects. Yeah, by just doing green buildings, they we have already saved in terms of carbon uh, 1.4 million tons of carbon, or 1,400 kilotons of carbon. Yeah, per year. But this is based on um, the idea of green buildings, where we actually convert the energy performance into actual uh, carbon measurements. Yeah, so it's a conversion. And if you look at the left hand corner here, you can see the conversion rates that GBI uses for carbon conversion, which differs from Peninsula Malaysia and Sabah and Sarawak because of the composition of fuels that it takes to generate electricity. Our electricity is slightly dirtier than that of Sabah, for example, because they use a lot of hydro. And most of these actually come from new construction. This is from the KL draft structure plan, when they wanted to draft the new structure plan for the 2020, which is now. But the ratio still remains the same up to now. But as you can see, new construction only constitutes to 15% of all the buildings that are in the city. What happens to the other 85%, which is the existing buildings? So most of the green buildings are actually constituting from this small pool of newly built building. So a lot of developers, when they want to do a new building, they consider green. But unfortunately, a lot of existing building owners, existing building users, people who own buildings, who operate buildings, are not considering green buildings. So that is another aspect that we are looking at, because GVI does have a existing building tool, but the uptake out of that, huge number of floor area that I mentioned now, which was converted to carbon, only 5% is consisting of existing buildings. So 95% is newly built. Yeah. So what at the Malaysian Green Building Council, what we are trying to do is we are trying to quantify carbon in order to help measure the performance of buildings, and also to dovetail very well into green rating systems such as GBI, MyCRES, or even Green RE, and all these other um, concurrent green rating systems. Yeah. This is just an overview of the label first. I'll go into a more detailed explanation later. But suffice to say, it is very, very different from what you know as a green building index. Yeah? So most people are very familiar with this classification system. Like even if you are using other green rating systems such as um, Green Star, Green RE, or whatever rating system, they usually refer to a 100 score pointing system that goes from certified, silver, gold, and platinum. So, but and this actually leads to like a classification system, and this is the classification system that developers usually use to market their buildings, or to determine the quality of sustainability in their buildings. So this was the measurement system that people use, basically. Yeah. Um, and of course, GVI has many, many different type of tools, not just for newly built. They also have for existing building, and also the township tool, industrial tool, existing building tools, and ID tools, non-residential new construction, non-residential existing building. Yeah, so all these tools share the same sort of criteria. But if you notice, the criteria are energy efficiency, sustainable site management, water efficiency, innovation, material resources, indoor environmental quality, and you will look around a lot of green rating tools. They will still look at these criteria. Yeah, even inside GBI, there are differences in point allocation between the criterias, but not many are looking at the actual carbon measurement. Um, why? In the first place, because when we developed GBI, it was intended to measure sustainability on an overall sense, and we understood that the market need to be a bit more mature to actually measure carbon, because measuring carbon is not something that is easily done. Yeah, but that being said, the world, as I mentioned just now, the UN, under the UNFCCC, the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, which is the body that actually determines the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreements, which all want to work at um, making sure that the temperature does not rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. Yeah, and this is an effort under the UN. So everybody reports to this body. Yeah, and that is what we term as the nationally determined contribution. So how much a nation contributes in terms of carbon to the world. Basically, they keep this registry. And we have been we as a country have always been reporting to UNFCCC. The only issue is that we lack data. Sometimes is based on assumption, sometimes is based on not hard data, as you know, assumed data. Sometimes is based on extrapolation, such as from the GBI just now. So we think that it is about time, since the aspirations of our country is to actually reduce its economy-wide carbon intensity against our GDP of 45% in 2030 compared to 2005 level. This is the actual commitment that Malaysia made to in our national determined contributions to the UNFCCC. The 45% of carbon intensity reduction is unconditional. That means regardless, whatever comes in. The target is an increase of 10% from an earlier submission. So previously it was 10% less, and it covers a lot more than just CO2. Is all the greenhouse gases, but CO2 being the main one. And even then, yeah, these are some studies done by uh, in a program from the University of Malaya with Econites and Nottingham University. It it is a look at what if we achieve our targets and how easy is it to achieve our targets. Actually, even with 45% lower emission intensity in 2030, total emissions will still increase. Why? Because it is against our GDP. Yeah. So um, we are improving, but emissions per person uh, is also increasing. Emission intensity of GDP is decreasing. So per person we are increasing. So total emissions also we're increasing. But if we compare it to our GDP, it is not. We are going down. So in a way, our promises to the NDC, even if we achieve it, is not actually helping to curb the rise. And I think this is something that we are concerned about, because I think is the thing that we are looking at is emissions per person, if possible, because everyone has a responsibility to, in fact, lower their carbon footprint. And there is local implications as well to this fact. If we look at global versus Malaysia, even you look at sea level rise, there are local towns that will be very, very much affected with sea level rise, and our rainforest will be very, very much affected, as our treasure is actually our mega diverse biodiversity. Yeah? And of course, climate changes would impact our agriculture. Agriculture is income for 10% of Malaysians. Coastal soil erosion. I'm sure if you have been going to resort some of the coastal areas and some of the beaches, you can already see changes in um, the tidal flows that cause more severe erosion. Uh, Malaysian seafood security is at threat because of our sea changes in the sea level. Yeah, and global out of the 181 countries in the global carbon dioxide league table, this is the data. It's a bit old, but still valid today. We are not doing very well. Because per capita, per person, we are the 41st highest emitter. Yeah. In terms of CO2 per $1,000 of GDP, we are the 40th highest, the out of the 24th highest in terms of overall emissions, which is 249 million tons of CO2. And if you remember just now, I took some data from GPI. We managed to offset or reduce 1.4 million tons per year. That is a very small amount out of the total emissions of our country. So at the very end, we are still not doing very well because I think we are going towards industrialization, and we need to control, we need to balance this out, this development with sensible carbon reduction strategies. Yeah. So Malaysia is top 4 in all 3 categories in ASEAN. Yeah. So in ASEAN, although we are a small country, yeah, but we are the top 4 in all these categories. So if you if you're further interested in any of this other data, you can go to the Bite Size Climate Action webpage, or any one of their social media pages, which has a lot of these comparisons. Yeah. Um, but a lot of people ask if we are such we are why buildings, yeah, since we there's a huge, just now 240 over million uh, tons of carbon being emitted, but actually a lot of that is coming from the building industry. Building industry in cities are responsible for 70% of the global energy consumption. Building operations, if you look at it, take into consideration the transportation that is affected by building, the construction, and the operations, is almost 60% or more of activities that actually emit carbon is involved in buildings. Yeah. And it's only going to get worse because globally, our building we are building more buildings. Definitely, we are even um, in Malaysia, where people say, "Oh, the economic advancement, the economic progress is not so good. We are slowing down, but still we're building a lot globally." Um, we are looking at in 2018, which where the benchmark for this data came from, which was from Architecture 2030, was 2.5 trillion. But at that graph, we are reaching almost 3 trillion feet of um, global floor area. And if you look at by 2030, it will reach around 3.5 trillion feet. Just to give you a sort of way of, imagining the size of that space. The global building stock will double in the area by 2060. We expect to add 2.48 trillion square feet, 230 billion meters square of new floor area in the global building stock. Yeah. So that is equivalent to adding an entire New York City every month for 40 years. So imagine you build an entire New York City every month for 40 years. That's how much the world is building, and that is why the world is suffering. It's not. Sometimes we forget to see the scale of human change because we see what is near us. We see perhaps a development near us or a house. Oh, how could this development actually affect the world? Because we are so numerous. There's 8 billion of us on this planet doing these things, and that is actually changing the climate. And what is the world doing? At the World Green Building Council level, they are cognizant of the fact that this is happening. And they have launched a program called Advancing Net Zero, trying to push all the countries who are members to reduce their carbon, and if possible, total sector decarbonization by 2050. Uh, this is throughout the world, throughout all the green building councils. And as you well know, Malaysia is an established green building council. That means we are on par with the established green building councils such as US Green Building Council, UK Green Building Council, Australia Green Building Council, Japan Green Building Council, and all that, among the 22 established green building councils. And we are uh, we are actively supporting this. Yeah. These are some snapshots done by the US GBC, and we are coming up with our own targets for supporting advancing net zero. But of course, it's very difficult to manage something which you can't measure, and that is where we come up with this scheme for Malaysian carbon score. A bit more later on the score. Um, we understand that this is essential to the progress because we have done the Malaysian Green Building Council was formed in 2007, uh, almost in parallel with the launch of the Green Building Index. And uh, we saw things that are happening in the industry that needed uh, doing. And I think the formation of the proper organization was in 2009. And the first thing, this is our roadmap. The one of the first things that we took on board was doing the Green Pages Malaysia repository of green building products, so that people can specify if they need to do green buildings. And we got our recognition as an established member in 2015, and we have expanded, yeah, to Sabah and Sarawak and whatnot in terms of chapters. Though our focus today is mostly on net zero, UN SDG, and ESG. So we are trying to make sure that these issues are addressed. Hence, we look at our initiatives and goals according to the roadmap. So net zero, or this carbon measuring, is under number 3. It will it was launched in the third quarter of 2021. Yeah. Now we are doing pilot projects and whatnot. So the idea of dissemination carbon score is actually to create an overarching system to measure carbon footprints of building in order to create an aspiration to reach net zero and ultimately net zero carbon. So what we mean is that it's an aspirational tool. When you talk about an aspiration, it's something you work towards rather than something that is prescribed to you. Yeah. So you'd use this as a measuring tool. And that is, I think, why the World Green Building Council terms their efforts as advancing net zero or going towards net zero rather than having all buildings net zero. If in reality, uh, having a net zero building is a very, very difficult thing to do, especially with higher intensities. Um, if the idea is that you have your normal business as usual buildings, you can go better through energy efficiency, such as using here MS 1525, which is our national energy efficiency standard, and you have tools like GBI, for example, to have their performance target. It will become a low carbon building. But in order to actually measure it as net zero emission or carbon neutral, you need to use a better measuring tool, which is the carbon score. Yeah. And ultimately, you want the building to have net zero carbon emissions. And if possible, uh, uh, you produce negative carbon, which means that you produce energy, for example, that is carbon positive. So you actually uh, contribute to other people. Yeah. So your score is actually negative, lower than zero. And it's not an easy journey because there is a lot of hidden challenges for technical challenges for measuring carbon in buildings. That is why it was not easily done in the country, especially with the looking at things like determining building life cycle, for example. What is the life cycle used in Malaysia? What is a typical building life cycle in Malaysia? We are a very young country. Say, for example, in the UK, they are quite matured. They have had buildings in their cities for a long time. They can have this kind of data, but we are most of our advancement, most of our urbanization in the global sense happened very recently. So we really need to look at things with much more how to say, we need to look at things which are much more finely acquired approach rather than looking at just historic data. Yeah. And those are among the challenges that we face. Yeah, not just about embodied, but also operational carbon. Uh, a lot of people, especially in the industry, do not still do not grasp the difference. Like, for example, even uh, f- uh, these two chairs might look very alike, but one can have a really high carbon footprint, and one can have a really low carbon footprint. Uh, in a way that how they are transported, how they are produced. Say, for example, the first chair is produced in a very inefficient factory, using processes that are very high energy, for example, very wasteful, and maybe even the efficiency is very low. There's a lot of people who are working there, uh, long hours. Perhaps also the transportation of this first chair that is from far away. Imagine if the first chair was transported from China, for example. It needs to go through shipping. It needs to go to a trailer from the factory, perhaps, then goes on a ship, and then comes to our port. From the port, goes to a warehouse. From the warehouse, goes to a site. Yeah. So that alone is a huge carbon footprint that is actually attributed to this chair. But the perhaps the second chair, which has a low carbon footprint, is perhaps is produced in a factory which is very efficient, uses good methodology to produce the chair, and maybe it's just from, say, from a nearby source, like from Kajang, for example. The site is in KL, so the carbon footprint would be immensely less on this chair. But the problem is that to the layperson, to the building owner, these chairs look almost alike, and sometimes the higher carbon footprint chair might be cheaper. So that is the problem, and that is our role to educate people on these kind of issues. Similarly to having electric cars. Yeah, people say, "Oh, electric cars, zero emissions." In a sense, it is true, but you must also remember the electricity comes from somewhere. So remember, just now I mentioned Peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak does not have the same electricity, does not have the same rate of carbon for electricity. It's the same. So if you pump your car with electricity that is dirty, um, say you are here, which is a lot more inefficient, or a lot more carbon emissions, right? Than, say, for example, electricity in Sabah, which use more hydro. Or even worse is something like in this picture where they have generators that they burn fuel or diesel to actually generate small quantities of power to actually power the electric car. So there's no efficiency. Perhaps the impact, uh, the sake of just using electric car without understanding why is it saving the environment, is also another thing that we should look at, because even now in Germany, some are questioning the performance of electric cars in Germany as compared to their very efficient catalytic converter diesel engines. Yeah, so at the end of the day, we are looking at bottom line. We need to measure the bottom line. If not, how will we know? Because by visual inspection, by just looking at it, there's no way to know. And another I issue with looking at carbon is the scope, as defined by the ISO standards. Yeah, when you look at the scope of things, when you look at carbon, there is, um, for example, scope one is direct emissions. That means the emission from the combustion of fuels in your own company. That you, in the transportation that you control, in the way that you produce and whatnot, that is your own. That is solely ours. Scope 2 is emissions from the generation of purchased electricity and is consumed in its own, or controlled equipment or operation. So this is also easy. As an example, for example, if you have a factory, um, you are producing, I know chairs just now, like chairs, yeah. You have a boiler, so that, or you have a furnace to melt metal and whatnot. So those emissions from that furnace is actually scope one, is yours. Scope two is emissions that we purchase. So like purchase electricity, like if you have a machine that uses electricity to make the chairs and whatnot. So the emissions from those machines is scope two. Yeah. Indirect emissions is emissions that are consequences of the building activities, but not are directly owned or controlled by the building management. So scope three is like, for example, you have some chairs that are outsourced, for example, or some portions of the chair, like the cushions, which are outsourced. They come to you ready made, but somebody else is actually releasing carbon to produce the chair. So, in order to measure all this, even on an operational level, it is a challenge. Yeah, because it is not as simple as just looking at your electricity bill or just measuring your own use. There is a wider scope that you must look at. And although some people would say embodied carbon, leave it till later, we still look at embodied carbon as an important factor, because embodied carbon is something that is linked to the building life cycle. These are some information taken from RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, and they are very serious into looking at zero carbon and LCA analysis. So the why I'm trying to show you this is that if you look at this graph over to the right, when they started in the year 2012, embodied carbon is 22%, which is a low figure, which is one fifth of the building. Yeah, but as the building industry become more and more advanced, buildings becomes more efficient, buildings become better. They project that in 2025, embodied carbon would be larger, and it does not mean that embodied carbon become worse. It is the same amount, but it's the building that becomes more efficient. So as the building becomes more efficient, the portion for embodied carbon will increase. So, for example, if you're doing a small house, the carbon that you release building the house, having the materials working, and plastering, blah blah blah, doing the house is the same. But say if you do it at a last time with inefficient machines, with a lot of wasteful methodology, with perhaps uh, dirty machines and whatnot. So your product would not be your embodied carbon, as in comparison with your process, would look. Oh, sorry. The With your operational, as your operational becomes better, the contrast would be there. Your baseline building of the house, as opposed to the carbon release while operating the house, the building will look become more and more significant. because the operations, as we have more things which are more energy efficient, more air conditioning systems that are better, lifestyles that are better, so it becomes more and more efficient. Yeah. So embodied carbon becomes something that we really want to keep and look at it, because in the future it will become something that is significant. uh, and the idea of this the system, which is a measurement system rather than a prescriptive system, is important, because a lot of people in our industry, in the building industry, be it architects or engineers or project managers or whoever, uh, are, are very much used to green rating tools. And green rating tools are a prescriptive system. So what I mean by prescriptive, say for example, if you want to lose weight, the measurement system is your scale. Okay. But a prescriptive thing is like, um, you go to the gym, you lose weight. You have a diet, you have a diet plan, you will lose weight. Or if you take some supplements, like a fat burner, you will lose weight. So those are prescriptive solution that is prescribed to you. Yeah. So usually the main difference is that prescriptive methodology usually requires a professional. Like if you go to the gym, you require a trainer to actually train you to use the equipment. You can't use the equipment on your own, because it will hurt you. Yeah. In terms of using the gym, or if you just going on a diet plan, a really serious diet plan, it's um, it's advisable to consult a nutritionist. You don't want to be getting into trouble and be malnutrition and whatnot. As well as if you are looking at taking supplements, of course, please consult your doctor first before you take any supplements that's available to you, because it might be detrimental to your health. The problem is that to hire professionals take money, and if we look at the building industry, that is why you see the impact just now with new buildings, because the new buildings have already got consultants in the new buildings that you're doing new construction. You already have a project team, so it's easier for them to, oh, let's do green building. Yeah. It's more difficult for the existing building stock. And that is what we are targeting the Malaysian carbon score at, because we need that part of the measurement to be reflected. Though if you are doing new construction, you can also use it as a measurement tool. Similarly to how a scale is very simple. Anybody can use it. A child can use it. Anybody can use it, but it does not preclude from being used by the professionals. Professionals can use it to scale in the gym, after to monitor your diet. Professionals can use it to monitor the effectiveness of your supplement. So it's the same thing, but we need to develop this scale. So that is why we are looking at uh, the development of this scale, so that we can dovetail into systems such as the GBI. Remember, I showed you just now this target with only 5% of the new build is actually existing building. So we have 95% to look at and to target. And it is also the same when you look at, just now it was just looking at overall. If you're looking at building typologies, if you're looking at offices, shopping, hotel, and others in Kuala Lumpur, uh, the existing portion, there's a lot more existing buildings and new projects. Yeah. So we need to change the carbon footprints of these existing buildings. So only then will we make actual impact to our carbon emissions. And it will also bring great value to all the other green rating tools. We have a lot of green rating tools in Malaysia, by various people. By for example, we have Green RE by the Radar. We have Green Pass. Uh, we have other people like Iskandar looking into CASB. But the nation carbon score would dovetail into all these measurement systems very nicely, as you imagine just now. Whatever prescribed methodology that you want to reduce carbon, you still need a measurement system. So that is where we come to our actual carbon score. This is just a mock-up of the actual labels. These labels actually represent uh, the the five sub-score sheets. Yeah, so you can have one label for energy, because I think energy, everybody agrees that energy is the lowest hanging fruit at the moment. We can easily measure energy through our electricity bill and through other forms of measurement. Yeah, it's the most easiest quantifiable thing in the building. Next is transport. Why transport? Yeah, in I did not bring the data today, but in recent studies in Putrajaya and in KL, the transport is shown to be a significant contributor to the building carbon, as opposed to all these other things. So that's why we put transport as the second most important factor, or most important subset. Yeah. Uh, Third is waste, and then we have materials, yeah, and then we have offsets, yeah. So these are actual offsets or even renewables that you can bring in, so that you have these things that actually um, affect your total carbon score, which is this black label here. And if you look at the numbers, they do not go according to from 0 to 60, from 60 to 100, because as I mentioned, to actually achieve 100% score is very, very difficult. Yeah, because at the end of the day, we are going to actually measure your actual carbon output. And if you're, for example, if you're a large building, like if you're an office tower with a very high intensity of energy use, yeah, it's very difficult to become zero, because even though you become energy efficient, you might be performing at the best level in the country with regards to efficiency, but you might not be net zero. That's why we are trying to create this sort of like a scale where you can say, oh, you're really doing good as well, although you're not actually having zero. Yeah. And this is just the concept of offsets and reduction. You have your carbon emissions and carbon reduction. We are in the midst of actually working with TMB. TMB is already selling renewable credits, but the idea is to ensure that it you need to limit purchase. We don't want people to just get a carbon score by purchasing all the offsets, right? Although theoretically it is something that is possible, but we don't want that to be the way that people get the carbon score. We want people to actually change the perception, their lifestyle, the way that the building works, the operation of the building. uh just a little breakdown. We have, yeah, I think this is just an emphasis on how the label is looks like. You have your carbon, you have your color codes, energy, transport, waste, and whatnot just now. We also have the number bars, as I mentioned. So highlighted numbers to show the moderated score. So moderated score might be influenced by some aspects that may change the score. So we want to show hopefully best of class at the top. Yeah. Other relevant measurements that are linked with this criteria, in this case energy. So we have all the other for example, EE performance. We want to show your EE performance as well, your energy efficiency performance, because at the end of the day, we want to look at things that actually improve overall. So you might not score so high here, but if your uh, energy efficiency is very good, that means you're doing well as well. Yeah. And other things like operational consumption, the actual intensity of your energy, and the actual intensity of your carbon per square meter and whatnot. So that is perhaps amongst the data that we will include in the label. Yeah. It the this is some timeline of development. We actually launched this tool on the 27th of November 2021, and it should be available for public 2022. We are running pilot projects. We're developing the back of a house to ensure that this tool can be used. Um, these are some of the prospective dates. The total we are looking at somewhere early next year. And the good thing about the idea about this tool is that it should be available to everyone. Everyone should be able to uh, use this tool. It is available by app. So, say for example, any homemaker, anybody who has an interest in measuring carbon can use it. So it's you want to make it as easy as somebody who wants to weigh a scale. Yeah, you just key in the data that it requires. Yeah, and then it would churn out the actual result. Only thing is to get a formal certificate from Malaysia GBC, it would need to go through a certification process, which hopefully we can also bring online, where there will be, of course, need to be a verification visit, but hopefully we'll try to push as much as possible the process online so that it's easier for everyone. Yeah, and it should be available on all platforms, Android, iOS, and Windows as a functional program or app lah. Yeah, so that is the objective. We will of course we will keep the public notified once this is ready, and of course if you're really interested in this Malaysian carbon score, you can write to mcs at malaysiagbc.org.my, which is a special address we have set to ensure that if you need anything, or you want to have, say for example, you want your project or your place to be a pilot project, you can write in. Yeah, I think we're in the midst of doing a microsite on the Malaysian GBC website. Once that's open as well, you can just key in online your details and whatnot for pilot project lah, basically. But in the meantime, if you have any concerns or you want to know more or you want to join the committee, there's a host of people who are helping us. It's a big group. It's not just one or two people. It's a big group developing this measurement system and consisting of the best minds in sustainability in buildings right now. So it's a great effort. If you want to join in, please do write in. And I think that I will close with that. And perhaps with this quote, yeah, it's all up to us. I always love this quote because people say, "Oh, how good the other countries are doing and whatnot," but the grass is always greener where you water it, right? So we need to water the grass in our country to make it greener, rather than saying other countries are greener and other countries are better. Yeah. So I think that is my keynote. Thank you for listening. I think I will pass back to Puan Rashida.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the speech. We humbly appreciate your presence and your willingness to share your amazing knowledge with us today. And with this, actually, we would like to show you the e-certificate that we prepared. Can
Oh,
we
okay.
project the e-certificate? So this is the e-certificate that we prepare for you, and we send to you after this conference. Okay, we will send by email. Okay, thank
Okay.
you again,
Yeah. All right. No
sir.
problem. No
We are
problem.
honored to have you here. Until we meet
Okay.
again in the future in the power.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Rashida.
you.
All right. Bye. Selamat berbuka.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we move on to the closing ceremony of MySite 2021. Without further ado, I would like to invite yang berusaha Professor R. Dr. Abdul Aziz bin Abdul Samad, Deputy Dean, Faculty of Engineering, Built Environment and Information Technology for his closing speech. Please welcome.
Thank you, Puan Rashida. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to everyone. And I'd like to thank you, everybody who are still with us today until from this morning until this evening, to listen to various amazing topics that has been presented by our invited speakers, our keynote speakers. Just now we listened to our keynote speaker, Associate Professor Sadli, who was talking about carbon measurements in buildings on various values that he has presented just now. Very significant aspect in our life. And then in this morning we had our first keynote speaker, Dr. Insanul, who was talking about preparedness, disaster preparedness, transformation, collaboration based on one ASEAN, one community. So it's very timely that we are thinking about how we can work together and how we can prepare ourselves for any form of disaster. And hopefully we do not have to face any disaster in the near future. But then it is always good to be reminded on how well we should be prepared in facing any form of disasters. So on behalf of the university, I really like to show my appreciation and to say thank you very much to our two keynote speakers who have spent a lot of time in preparing their presentation and to share with us their knowledge towards their expertise to ourselves and to our audience who join us in this conference. So I would also like to say a lot of appreciation also to our paper presenters for today. We had 4 sessions for this conference. A total of 14 papers were presented, very interesting papers in relation to areas such as in materials, green materials, geotechnical matters, water, structural matters. So all have been discussed and presented by our speakers who have prepared very well for their presentation. I think it was a very interesting presentation by all. All were very significant to our conference, and I'd like to repeat that today's conference is entitled International Sustainable Infrastructure, Technology and Environment, or in short, MAHSA 2022. So all the contents that have been presented by our keynote speakers and also all the presenters, all the 14 papers presented today are very in line with the theme of the conference, which is on sustainable environment and green technology towards IR 4.0. So I'd like to thank them all and I wish them all the best. And on behalf of the faculty, I would also like to thank the university management, especially our beloved Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Ikram Shah bin Ismail, the Vice Chancellor of MAHSA University, and also to our Professor Dr. Sri Kumar, who from the Postgraduate Research and Innovation, the Director for Postgraduate Studies, Research and Innovation, and also to Dr. Iman Falsri, the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment, for giving us the support and giving us the support to get this conference going. So I think the conference has been very timely, and it's very because we are now, if you are aware or not, April 22 is Earth Day, and I think this conference has been very timely with regards to the Earth Day that we are supposed to be celebrating today. So with that in mind, I end my speech for today. I'd like to thank all the committee members, especially to the conference chair, Madam Nur Farahin, who has done a splendid job in organizing this conference, and also to her committee members, which I cannot mention one by one. There are so many of them. So, so all of them have done a very good job with this very busy time, with all the lectures going on, with all the various meetings and here and there. But Puan Nur Farahin and her committee members have done a very excellent job in organizing themselves and organizing this conference, in making sure that this conference is running as smoothly as what we can see today. And it was very unfortunate that this morning we had a very bad incident when the power was off for a short period, which causes the conference to be stopped for a few minutes. Sorry, not for a minute, about at least half an hour. So, but then with the professional arrangement, the good attitude of the committee members, they have managed to get the conference going again. So with that, I really appreciate your contribution. You have done very well, and I hope that we will organize another conference with a better theme as what we have, with a much more better theme as what we have today. So with that, I end my speech. I thank you again very much to everybody. I thank you very much to the university and to all my colleagues in the faculty for your cooperation and contribution towards making this conference a success. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, next, let us all welcome Conference Chair, MAHSA 2022, Ms. Nur Farahin Muhammad Amin, for her closing remarks. Please welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Nur Rashida. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good evening to all of you. Today has been wonderful and amazing day as we have successfully had our MAHSA Conference 2022 with the theme Sustainable Environment and Green Technology Towards IR 4.0. So as a chairman of this conference, I would like to take this opportunity to express my deep appreciation to Prof. Dr. Ikram Shah bin Ismail, our Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Iman Farshi, the Dean Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment, for their motivational and inspirational speeches during opening ceremony. Special thanks go to our keynote speakers, Dr. I.R. Insanul Kamil and Associate Professor A.R. Salih Adrisarkum, for sharing their extensive research and their eye-opening presentation. The topics are very relevant as we embrace the future challenges ahead. Furthermore, I really want to especially thanks to Prof. Ala, Prof. Dr. Sri Kumar, Ms. Jennifer, Dr. Guna, Ms. Teo, and Max team for their wonderful support to make this event successful. To all the faculty's members, the Dean, Deputy Dean, Program Coordinator, all lecturers from Faculty of Engineering and IT, thank you again for your support. Lastly, I would like to thank Ms. Nur Rashida and Dr. Hafiz for their wonderful job as MC, Dr. Husni for the Doa, and the rest of the committee. Your support and cooperation has been valuable, especially for Dr. Sabrin and also Aidil here with me. And then to all the paper presenters, thank you for your wonderful presentation. To the rest of the participants and the listeners, thank you for joining MAHSA 2022 conference. It has been great to have you in the conference. Congratulations to all the winners today, and thank you all. Have a great day and stay safe wherever you are.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Farahin. Now we are at the peak of the ceremony, which is the one that everyone is waiting for, the award giving ceremony. Okay, for the award giving ceremony, they're going to project the certificates and also the winners. So I'm going to announce the winner based on it. So we're going to start. We start with the Best Presenter Award. The award goes to Karim Hisham, Best Presenter with the title of, so Dr. Moon Wei Chek, Muhammad Shazwan Saharuddin, Professor IR Dr. Abdul Aziz Abdul Samad. Okay. Congratulations to all winners for Best Presenter today. Okay, the e-certificate will be sent out to you after the conference. Congratulations, winners. Others, you can try again next year, including me. Okay. Before we end the conference today, we would like to show you a montage, a video montage of today's event. This was done by one of our staff, Mr. Shazwan Shaharuddin, and dedicate to all of you.
Kami dari FBIT ingin mengucapkan
Okay. Wow, what a wonderful video that. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, with every beginning, there is an ending. And now is the end of MAHSA 2022. Once again, I would like to thank everyone, each and every one of you, for gracing our ceremony with your presence, and we really appreciate it. Everyone, thank you for coming, inshallah, and hope to see you again in next MAHSA 2023. I'm Nur Rashida. Happy Earth Day. Until next time, thank you.